Good evening. I'm going to call the January 11th, 2022 agenda meeting to order. Beginning with the Finance and General Government Committee, we'll begin by discussing a resolution making certain budgetary modifications.
So these would be the same budget modifications that we just discussed at Finance. Some housekeeping for 2021 and the acceptance of a grant for the town historian. And for 2022, the acceptance of a grant for greenhouse gas, right? Greenhouse gases with a town match of $25,000.
Thank you. As chairperson of this committee, the board and I are not ready to move forward with the resolutions addressing the phone system. As such, I wish to table items 2 through 4. Therefore, we can move on to the Public Works Committee. Thank you, Matt Yetto.
Thank you. Number 5 is a resolution authorizing a fence easement agreement for 2468 Hilltop Road. It's our standard easement agreement, which just allows property owners to put either fences or sheds or other structures in our town utility easements. It basically lets them know, puts them on notice that if we have to move the particular structures, we don't have to put them back, just so they're not surprised if something happens, if we have to do some work on the utility. Any questions on that? It's pretty straightforward. Number 6 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a sewer pump for the Fillmore pump station on Fillmore Avenue. It's a cost of $12,550 for a replacement pump. Number 7 is a resolution authorizing the fall 2021 residential and commercial utility bill reconciliation. It's a it's typical standard resolution. And then 8 is similar resolution. It's for the third quarter 2021 corporate utility bill reconciliation. And number 9 is a resolution to permanently appoint Chief Water Plant Operator Josh Walter. Has successfully passed the civil service exam. He's been working very well at our water plant, so we'd like to permanently appoint him. Looking forward to having him be permanent. He's a great asset, and I would hate to lose him. So, any questions? It's a short month, so.
I have no questions. Thank you, Matt. And from Community Programs Committee, we have Lori Peretti. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello. Number 10 is a resolution hiring senior fitness instructors and rec workers. This is our yearly resolution for the ladies that do the senior exercise at the senior center and the rec workers that do events, parties, maybe go on ski trips or help me out throughout the year. Very straightforward. Anybody have any questions? No?
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
And now Economic Development, Historic Preservation, Environmental Conservation Committee, Laura Robertson.
So number 11 is a resolution accepting a Climate Smart Communities grant. As we just discussed in the Finance Committee, this is a grant, $50,000 grant from DEC for two actions, I believe. One is the government greenhouse gas inventory, and the other one is a government climate action plan. Both of these actions would give us points towards climate smart certification and hopefully open the doors for more grants, but also as a standalone, very important and good for our town to do so that we're moving forward in addressing climate change. Number 12 is a resolution calling for a public hearing on a special use permit application. This one's no longer tentative. Well, it's still a little tentative, but we discussed it at planning board yesterday. This is a daycare that wants to move into existing church at 1930 Hillside Ave. We treat when daycares co-locate in churches as a special use permit. It's the same process as like putting a gas station on the corner of a neighborhood street. So like it's quite a long process. But when a daycare moves into a church, they're not changing the outside of the building. They're usually just reusing existing spaces. Typically, it's shared, right? Because most places of worship have a specific day when many of their people come, and it's usually offset from when the kids would be there. So it's a good use of reuse of space. And we typically try and compress the process a little bit just because it's very thorough. The planning board has to have a public hearing, do a recommendation to the town board. The town board has to call for a public hearing, then make the determination on the special use permit, and then it goes back to the planning board for final. So just to set them up, we're asking to call for a public hearing at the end of the month, which wouldn't be held until February. Number 13 is a resolution appointing a member to the Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Our wonderful Mo Oster had been on the planning board. I'm going to look because we want to do a resolution thanking him, but definitely a long time. My guess is over a decade. Had to step down due to work conflict. So I was recommending the most senior that I have member of the planning board alternates is J.C. Shenfield. Leslie's also an alternate. They both do a fantastic job. I'm just going process. Daisy is really stepped up and reviews the packets very thoroughly, and I think she would be great. That does leave an opening for an ad hoc member. We typically use our alternates to fill when we lose somebody from the planning board because they're required to attend all of the meetings. I don't have any names, but theoretically, if we had an ad hoc, we could also appoint them at the end of the month. Well, they're alternates. We shouldn't call them ad hocs, right? Yeah, we decided that. That's my recommendation on that one. Number 14 is a resolution setting 2020 TDE rates. TDE is our town designated engineer. When the town receives applications from developers, they typically require a decent amount of engineering review. The taxpayers don't pay for that. The developer pays for it. So we farm it out to different engineering firms, and they review the development applications. And so we have a list that we go through that we use, try to use a couple of people on the list every year. And they supply us with the rates so that we know what the charges are up front. And then the last one, I'm very excited, a resolution accepting a grant for historical marker. Our town historian, Dennis Brennan, has been getting these grants. They're pretty awesome. We get these signs that are made by a company that designates historical places in the town of Niskayuna. It's great for placemaking. It's great for letting people know that, we have these historic places in our town and just reminding people of our history. So I think, Janet, that was your other budget mod, right? Where'd she go? She's leaving. But yeah, he's already got the, he's already got that. So it's just accepting it. He does a good job with those. Any questions on any of those?
Yes, just briefly, Ms. Robertson, the town designated engineering rates. Why do we have town designated engineers? Just to explain to the board quickly why we have town designated engineers.
Yeah, because when a project comes through, like for example, Rivers Ledge, you're talking about like moving shale, dynamiting things, like putting in a couple miles of sewer and water lines, adding buildings. I mean, it can be small, but we'll just use that for an example. It's a ton of engineering. And if our engineering department were to go through those documents and read all the SWIPs and figure out what it was, it would take them hours and hours and days, and they're funded by the public salary, right? So that's not really a fair use of the engineer's time when a developer is putting forth a proposal like that. And it's true in most other towns, that heavy engineering they pay for. So they give us a check, and then we hire an engineer to outside review and double check what they're saying. So we don't just trust their engineer because we get a ton of comments at the planning board concerned about drainage.
So is some of the engineering rates offsetted by the developers?
Right, yeah. So the developer always has their own engineer, and their engineer will say, our stormwater isn't going to bother anybody. But I mean, theoretically, their engineer is working for their client. They're stamping it, so everything they should do should always be legit. But the town has its own test to make sure that all that engineering is done accurately. But we don't allow for the developer to hire that engineer themselves because then that's their client. The town is the client of the town designated engineer. When we hire that engineer, they're working for us to protect the town's interest. It's just we don't use taxpayer money to fund them. We use the developer's money. So they have an escrow. And when we put that together, we put the rates together so that we can, so everything's up front. We can share those rates with the developer, and they get an estimate of how much the engineering is going to cost when they submit a proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on, we have the Police and Public Safety Committee.
Good evening again. Number 16 is a resolution authorizing a vehicle maintenance bid for 2022. This past contract was done in 2019 with the option of a 2-year extension. We're hoping to put it to resolution because obviously it does expire here coming up at the end of February of 2022. I'm working in conjunction with new town attorney Finnan regarding this because obviously that's new to me. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. The patrol maintenance bid, just to clarify, it's specific to the maintenance of our patrol vehicles, right? There's an upkeeping to that equipment that has to be done by certified technicians with certain standards and parameters so that we're ensuring that our vehicles are safe, they're operating appropriately, and that we're also protecting our investment on those vehicles to make sure that we're not running them into a ground, essentially. I don't know if anybody has any questions specific to that one. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you looking to use that 2-year extension or to put the bid out?
Nope. So it's going to go through a bid process because that 2-year extension has already been used on the previous contract. So this would be a new sealed bid process that would go out to the public and then follow those parameters as defined through the purchasing policy and through protocol regarding a sealed bid.
Thank you.
Number 17, a resolution authorizing contracts with APF and Mohawk Hudson Humane Society. Again, I'm working with Town Attorney Finnan regarding this. We previously had a contract with solely the APF, which for folks that don't know, that's right over in Glenville. They do a fantastic job over there. Unfortunately, they don't deal with dangerous dogs. And this has been a long ongoing process from a policing / public safety / animal control perspective, because when a dog is deemed dangerous, we've always run into walls as to what we're supposed to do with that dog because we don't have a service in place. Hence why it says and Mohawk Hudson Humane Society. They do in fact deal with dangerous dogs. So it would be at this time 2 separate contracts. The contract as it's currently written for the Animal Protective Foundation, I looked over it again today. It's the same exact language as the previous contract. The only increase or changes are to the fee schedule with regards to euthanasia and to cremation. And those line items each increased by $30 increments on those line items. However, we did a 2-year look back today and we have never used those line items in the past 2 years. So I don't think it will be impactful to the budget should we choose to opt into that contract. The Mohawk Hudson Humane Society contract is a little bit more elaborate. This is a similar contract to what other agencies use in Schenectady County. I don't remember if it was the Schenectady Police Department or the Rotterdam Police Department that we kind of modeled our contract after with regards to them. And that's something that we're going to have to continue to just kind of look at together prior to the final resolution regarding that contract in conjunction with the town attorney's office to make sure that's all buttoned up tight. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that either.
Are you thinking it would make more sense to have 1 contract instead of 2?
So it's an excellent question. It's something that Alina and I had spoken offline about. My initial reaction was obviously yes, right? Of course it would make sense. Let's have a singular point of contact that we're dealing with solely. Let's negotiate that contract. However, Mohawk Hudson Humane Society is in Menands, I believe. Is it Menands? Yes, Menands. From an operational standpoint, if we were to go solely to them, we're talking about tying up a resource, i.e. a police officer potentially delivering an animal to Menands versus directly over into Glenville on a routine lost dog call, let's say. So I think that's something we have to take in consideration when we're looking at these contracts and we make a final determination. I think it would make most sense if I was to give a recommendation at this point until we decide what a long-term solution is to go with both the APF and the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society together. I read the APF contract and I don't claim to be, a prevailing authority and expert on contracts. However, the APF contract does have an opt-out clause with 30-day notice. So if we were to opt into these, we would then have the ability to opt out at the town board's purview to develop a long-term plan as to how we were going to move forward.
Thank you.
Number 18 is a resolution authorizing payment to the Zone 5 Police Academy. Again, I spoke to that already. As of tonight, we have 27 members as of the 24th of this month. That's when it's effective. That is what we are assessed at for that police academy rate, and it's something that we have to pay to continue to utilize that service. So I would definitely recommend that as well. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Koshin. Given we have no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.